Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. The Trump administration has officially begun transferring detained illegal migrants from the U.S. to Guantanamo Bay, with the first flights starting early yesterday. More news from the USAID as the White House released a more extensive list of projects overseen by the top U.S. aid agency it identified as waste and abuse, as Elon Musk's cost cutters seek to dismantle this decades-old provider of foreign aid. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt believes the mainstream media can't keep up with all the good news flowing out of President Trump's White House. We have those details for you. The Trump administration is serious about getting federal workers back in their office and eliminating costly office space that's not being used. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin appeared on CNN yesterday and made it very clear that he expects his employees back in the office. Comedian Jon Stewart is pleading with Democrats to stop sending Senator Chuck Schumer out to counter President Donald Trump every time the White House announces a new initiative. We have that for you as well. And we have some highlights from President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's news conference held yesterday. It's another busy day.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The Trump administration announced yesterday that they have begun transferring detained illegal migrants from the U.S. to Guantanamo Bay. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed to reporters. This, of course, follows President Trump's directive to prepare the military base to house up to 30,000, quote, criminal illegal aliens. Leavitt stated, I can also confirm that today the first flights from the United States to Guantanamo Bay with illegal migrants are underway. The announcement marks a significant shift in the administration's handling of illegal immigration, reinforcing Trump's commitment to removing criminal migrants from American communities. The first flights departed from Fort Bliss and other military installations, we're told. Pentagon officials confirmed that one aircraft carried approximately a dozen migrants. Additional flights are expected, and reports indicate that at least one more flight left the U.S. Yesterday afternoon. Detainees are being housed separately from the 15 high-profile terrorism suspects that are already at the facility that have been there for a while, including 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Currently, the base has facilities to accommodate around 144 migrants, which, not a lot. But security and logistical constraints prevent full utilization at this stage, according to the Pentagon. About 150 Marines have been deployed to Naval Station Guantanamo Bay to oversee the operations, constructing temporary accommodations like tents and latrines and showers. The infrastructure required to house the full 30,000 detainees that Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth envisioned is still under development, as plans are being made on exactly what will have to be done to the facility to accommodate the 30,000. HHS Secretary Kristi Noem yesterday appeared on Life, Liberty, and Levin, and Mark Levin asked about the capacity of Guitmo and the plan for increasing that.
Well, that's a facility right now that is holding illegal aliens and criminals, and it is holding those that are the worst of the worst today. We're going to expand the capacity, though. It could expand up to 30,000 people, and we will use that for those individuals that need to be prosecuted for violent crimes, rapes, murders, assaults, and held accountable, and then get them out of this country. So it's a good solution for us, and that can be stood up quite quickly. I'm hoping to get there real soon to oversee that building of the facility and make sure that we have the resources we need to detain these individuals and get our country back. So that's one of the reasons we'll be hitting Capitol Hill here a lot, asking for that reconciliation bill. We cannot do what President Trump has promised the American people unless we have the resources to do it. And it's not just building detention centers and prosecuting those who are already on our streets. We need to make sure we fix our legal immigration system too, so that we have more immigration courts. We can do the processing faster, and judges that will be doing their work, and make sure that this country really does work for the American people again, and that we continue to be a nation of immigrants, but legal immigrants, not those who do us harm.
And as we talked about yesterday, as part of the broader enforcement strategy of the Trump administration, they've secured agreements with several nations for repatriation of their citizens. The White House said that El Salvador has agreed to accept deported individuals, including criminals from other nations passing through the country. Venezuela and Colombia have similarly pledged to cooperate in the efforts as well. Meanwhile, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel strongly condemned the U.S. for transferring illegals to Guantanamo Bay. In a post on X, he described the move as an act of brutality, accusing the U.S. of imprisoning thousands of migrants in an illegally occupied territory alongside suspected terrorists. Well, maybe we just send them straight to Cuba. Would he like them in Cuba, you think? President Trump has framed this whole Guantanamo migrant transfer as a necessary step to ensure national security. He described them as being so bad that we don't even trust their countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back. He said, we're going to send them to Guantanamo. It's a tough place to get out of. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem again backed the move, saying that Guantanamo is already being used for detaining the most dangerous criminal migrants. And, as she said a minute ago, just got to get the place ready to serve as many people as we need for it to do. His memorandum signed last week initiates the process to expand the capacity, securing up to 30,000 beds for these detained migrants. The president also called on Congress to fully fund border security measures and deportation efforts, reiterating his administration's commitment to tackling illegal immigration like we haven't seen it since he left office 4 years ago. Now, of course, the decision has sparked mixed reactions in the U.S. Congress. While immigration hardliners have applauded the move as a decisive step towards securing the border, Trump's critics argue that detaining migrants at Guantanamo Bay sets a troubling precedent. Well, it is a precedent. It's a precedent that you come to our country illegally, you continue to break our laws, we're going to arrest you, we're going to send you to a place that you really don't want to be. That's the precedent that it sets, right? Human rights groups are voicing their concerns about potential due process violations, while Democrat lawmakers have labeled the move as an extreme and unnecessary escalation. What do they want us to do with these people? Well, I can answer my own question. I think I can tell you what AOCs and Ilhan Omar and those, they want us to leave them alone. They want us to let them stay in sanctuary cities, I guess, until they do something to one of their family members. Until we have another Lake and Riley situation. And you got to think about the cost associated with this as well. It's going to cost us a lot of money to carry out this effort because of the sheer numbers here. We haven't seen any numbers as far as what it's going to take to get Guantanamo up to the standards that needs to be able to serve 30,000. It was originally established in 2002 to detain terrorism suspects after the September 11th attacks. Guantanamo Bay has been a focal point of legal and ethical debates for years. Some of the leftist Democrats, they don't even think we should have terrorists over there. Its use as a migrant detention center probably is going to further complicate its already controversial past. But that's okay, because the Democrats are never going to be okay with it. The Democrats are never going to accept it because they'd rather have these people running loose. This decision has a lot of people talking about a lot of different things and how this should be carried out. Look, I like the idea of these other countries, just shipping them down to them. I like the idea of us paying the other countries to take them. Just get them out of our out of our hands altogether. With, of course, with some types of safety, some type of overlook there, so that we know that they really keep them, that they don't just turn them loose. As the Trump administration moves forward with the tough immigration enforcement strategy, the situation at Guantanamo Bay is probably going to just evolve with time. Because, look, we're just at the beginning of this. 30,000 will probably just be a tip of the iceberg when it comes to the number of people we'll need to serve. The thing is, where we put these illegals is a good problem to have, because at least we're now apprehending them and they're not running loose in our communities. There's a lot of talk about making America great again, and it begins with making America healthy again. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss are at the forefront to educate and guide you to be your best self. The millions being spent in propping up Big Pharma are astounding, only to create long-term dependency and harmful side effects. Let's take a natural approach that isn't connected to a pharmaceutical company's bottom line. The coaches at PhD Weight Loss will show you how. The entire program is centered around science and nutrition, a proven roadmap that has helped over 8,000 clients lose over 331,000 pounds. You'll learn what to eat and when, how to quiet cravings, and finally get rid of that belly fat. Plus, you'll never take a medication. How many pounds would you like to lose in 2025? Do it the natural way with PhD Weight Loss, here to lead the charge to make America healthy again. Call PhD Weight Loss and schedule your consultation. 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin appeared on CNN with host Phil Mattingly yesterday. Talked about how a brief that he just recently received, when asked about the employees working in the office versus the amount of space they have, and he said he was kind of shocked that as few as 5% of EPA employees showed up to the office on Mondays and Fridays. 5%. President Donald Trump ordered federal employees to return to the office in an executive order he signed on January 20th. Mr. Zeldin said that showing up was important during this interview on CNN's newsroom.
Coming over the top of, from the last administration, very different policy priorities from the last administration. How do you see this playing out?
I think it's important for our team to be showing up. I was just briefed yesterday that on Mondays and Fridays, the EPA headquarters was averaging about 5 to 8% capacity. I mean, think about how low that number is. We need people in the office collaborating, working together. We need to be productive and efficient. As far as ramping up efforts on the ground, right now in Los Angeles, EPA has just launched what is the largest wildfire cleanup in the history of the EPA. As of today, the last number that I got, we have over 1,100 people in the field cleaning up hazardous materials. We're still finishing up in Western North Carolina. But I think it's very important, Phil, that we have our team here in headquarters and in the regions showing up, working hard, and making the American public proud.
Well, you know, that is a basic, is just to show up to your office. That's a good starting point, isn't it? Don't get me started on this one. I mean, I just can't imagine companies allowing employees not to come to the office. And the federal government, and I'm going to share with you a little bit later some numbers from Senator Joni Ernst. Evidently, she's been on this subject, this issue, for quite a while now. And it's scary how many federal workers we allow to stay home. It's a good job, I guess, if you can get it. The EPA sent the Daily Caller News Foundation data sheet showing occupancy at the EPA headquarters in D.C., stating that from April 2024 to the present, when asked for comment, Zeldin said, "I went through an entire wing where no door was open and no one was inside. I went to other offices where there were lots of people there working hard. We're occupying a beautiful, historic, massive building, and we shouldn't have hallways that are just quiet. The American people pay us to work for them." Mr. Zeldin was asked about a recent letter sent to short-term employees of the EPA, making it clear that there's going to be a cut in federal employees, and the EPA is not immune.
employees in your workforce who had been working a year or less at EPA got emails telling them because they were on that probationary period, they could be fired at any time. What is the plan and what was the point of that email?
First off, that email, which I believe went to around 1,700 or so employees, were to people who were probationary employees. It's just restating what that means. What we're seeing right now is that a lot of employees are taking the fork in the road. That is, they can choose to leave the federal government and get paid through the end of September. We just instituted a voluntary early retirement opportunity for people, which is being warmly received from a number of employees who are looking for that option. And it's important for us to just be efficient and productive. We have core statutory requirements that are in law that EPA needs to do exceptionally. It's important that we're able to execute on our mission, which is protecting human health and the environment. And as I laid out this morning in announcing an initiative to power the Great American Comeback, I think it's important that while executing that first pillar of pursuing clean, safe, healthy air, land, water, that we are looking at what's in our jurisdiction to help unleash energy dominance, to make America the AI capital of the world, to have permitting reform, and to bring back American auto jobs. And that's just a sample of some of what we could do to be part of a solution, because the American public spoke last November that they have great concern over economic issues to be able to pursue their American dream, and that's something we're sensitive to.
It still just amazes me that federal workers think they don't have to show up. Now, I'm sure they claim that they're working from home, but who is as effective at home as they are from at their office? There are a few positions, I understand that, but in most cases, you need to be in your office so your manager can see what you're doing. The Trump administration has eyed lots of ways to try to reduce federal office space in Washington, D.C. We're paying a lot of money every month for a lot of empty buildings. It's costing millions of taxpayer dollars to keep these buildings open and operational, despite the scarce number of in-person federal workers occupying some of the buildings on a daily basis. So something's got to change. We either have to decide we're not going to allow people to work from home and get rid of the buildings, or make them go to the buildings. That's part of their contract, part of getting their check. You show up, you get paid. That's it. Rather than just direct depositing checks, maybe go back to the old school method, have their checks on Friday for them to pick up. That'll get them to the office, won't it? Wow. A Republican, I mentioned a minute ago, Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa issued a 60-page report that covered findings from her investigation into federal employee telework after sending letters to 24 government agencies asking questions about some of these issues about remote work. Ernst's report also detailed the impact vacant office buildings have on the workforce. The Government Accountability Office released this report to Senator Ernst, and it revealed that the Transportation Department, DOT, used only 14% of its office space. 14% of the office space that DOT has leased. The memo provided to the Daily Caller News Foundation shows that only 6 out of 24 agencies reviewed by the GAO had building utilization rates below the DOT's 14%, with the Social Security Administration having the lowest utilization rate at 7%. The DOT's Inspector General rejected a request by Senator Ernst to look into issues and abuses with telework in September, citing ongoing and planned changes the agency was implementing for its workforce. How do you refuse not to give information to a U.S. Senator? You go through, and I looked at this report, and it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad when you have these huge agencies. The report says that no agency listed in the memo used more than 49% of their building space. So 49% was the largest. That was the top of all of these 24 agencies. Wow. That's why our federal government is about to get an overhaul. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Let me give you a quick update on the airplane crash last week in Washington, D.C. Officials say that as of yesterday, all 67 victims of the American Airlines flight and the U.S. Army Black Hawk have been recovered from the Potomac River. Of those, 66 bodies have been positively identified, marking a significant step in bringing closure to these grieving families and the nation, but for these families particularly. The collision, of course, involved the Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, the American Airlines Bombardier CRJ-700. They recovered victims, including the 60 passengers and 4 crew members, and, of course, the 3 crew members aboard the Black Hawk. Investigators have been working at the crash site since the incident, with preliminary data from the flight data recorder indicating that the commercial jet was struck at an altitude of about 325 feet. National Transportation Safety Board member Todd Inman confirmed that a slight change in pitch was recorded just before impact, suggesting that the plane may have attempted to pull up. However, discrepancies remain between air traffic control data and the onboard recordings, with further analysis needed to finalize the exact altitude and to find out for sure if the helicopter was where it was supposed to be. This is going to be an ongoing investigation. Officials are awaiting additional data from the Black Hawk's flight recorder. Military and government helicopters frequently operate in the area. They make it a well-traveled route for aviation up and down that river. Officials warned that determining the precise cause of the collision may take some time as they analyze all the available information. So, but again, I'm so happy for these families that they are able to get their loved one back and do a proper burial for sure. The White House this week released a list of projects overseen by the top U.S. aid agency that's been in the news so much the last few days, USAID or USAID, or, I'd love to know how you are supposed to pronounce this. If you know, text me or email me, joey@joeyhudson.com, because I've heard it multiple different ways. U.S. Senator John Kennedy says USAID. Others say USAID. Others say USAID. So it's being identified differently. So I'm going to stick with how John Kennedy says it, USAID. But send me a quick note. And do you agree? You've heard it multiple ways. Of course, Elon Musk and his group of cost cutters are trying to potentially dismantle this agency along with others. Musk is considered a, quote, special government employee. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said that that Musk oversees this newly created DOGE, and despite its title, DOGE is not a government agency, she explained, but has been tasked by the White House's executive office with dismantling top spending initiatives. And the billionaire's most recent target, of course, has been this U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, or USAID. The White House said, for decades, the United States Agency for International Development has been unaccountable to taxpayers as it funnels massive sums of money to the ridiculous and, in many cases, malicious pet projects of entrenched bureaucrats with next to no oversight. According to the list that was released by the White House, USAID allocated millions of dollars for programs which the Trump administration considers controversial and that frequently involve diversity, equity, and inclusion, that they're pet DEI projects that were launched during the Biden administration. You know, one thing we're going to get into eventually, and I just don't have the answers today, but who comes up with the ideas of spending money on some of these things that we're seeing? I mean, how does that work, I wonder? Does a member of Congress request it? I mean, or do these people in this agency just go out looking for ways to spend our money? At the top of the list was a $1.5 million program slated to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities, and a $70,000 program for a DEI musical in Ireland. You heard me right. A $1.5 million DEI program for Serbia's workplace and business communities. Now, what business do we have in Serbia and promoting DEI in Serbia businesses? And who came up with this idea? See, this is, I would love for someone just to focus on this single one and go back and get a complete history. Who came up with the idea to send Serbia workplaces and business communities $1.5 million of my money, of my taxpayer dollars? How did that come about? Wouldn't you love to know? Wouldn't you love to know how what bright young bureaucrat came up with this idea? Other initiatives supported LGBTQ programs were also flagged as an appropriate use of taxpayer funds, including a $47,000 check for a transgender opera in Colombia, South America, a $32,000 for a transgender comic book, $32,000 for a transgender comic book. White House referenced reports about these programs by the Daily Mail, the Daily Caller, News Foundation, and other outlets. Now, you know, we'll have to wait on a final report. These are some of the initial ones out there. But look, for the billions of dollars they spent, there's going to be a lot of these crazy programs that we're going to have to review. The White House also outlined USAID's funding for coronavirus research. It included millions of taxpayer dollars supplied to EcoHealth Alliance for coronavirus research. They also helped fund support for contraceptive initiatives and programs that it said were that benefited terrorists in several countries. The future of USAID remains unclear, according to Fox News. Well, of course it does. I hope that it's unclear where they're going next. The doors to this agency were closed on Monday. Thousands of employees around the globe were waiting to hear if they still had jobs after the Musk takeover. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been named the acting director, and he agreed Monday with the White House that the agency needed an overhaul. He told Fox News, "The president made me the acting administrator. I've delegated that power to someone who is there full time, and we're going to go through the same process as USAID as we're going through now at the State Department." Questions, of course, remain over whether the White House has the legal authority to dismantle an independent agency. Democrat lawmakers are already jumping up and down, questioning or accusing Trump of going beyond his legal boundaries. Look, it didn't stop Joe Biden from doing some of this crap, did it? Joe Biden would sign an executive order and expect it to be carried out. So that's what Donald Trump's doing now. Secretary Rubio took issue with the protests and referred to these protests of some of the employees. The employees were seen standing outside of the headquarters protesting the shutdown, despite them being told to stay at home. So Secretary Rubio is saying the goal was to reform it, but now we have rank insubordination. Now we have basically an active effort. Their basic attitude is we don't work for anyone. We work for ourselves. No agency of the government can tell us what to do. Well, I think they're about to find out that they actually do work for someone. They work for Donald Trump. And he's about to tell them, you're fired. They're about to hear those words. But again, this is the tip of the iceberg. So some of the things that are being outlined, there's a great meme that's being circulated. If you follow me on Facebook, for example, you may see it. If you don't follow me, be sure and find me. Just go to Facebook, look for Joey Hudson, like and comment. But there's this meme that's being circulated. I have it on my Facebook page. It says the same people terrified of Doge wanted to hire 80,000 additional IRS agents to audit you. And it's right. I mean, those Democrats who are jumping up and down crying that Doge is overstepping its bounds, they're the ones who wanted all these extra IRS agents to look over my tax return, to look over your tax return. But this is just the beginning of it. I mean, agencies so far, and Doge, you can, if you follow Doge on X, you can see this because they're posting about every day. So far, a total of 104 contracts were eliminated across 30 federal bodies with a ceiling value of agreements calculated at $1.2 billion. Now, $1.2 billion is a lot of money. It's not a lot of money when you compare it to our overall budget. But still, $1.2 billion in waste, and the Trump administration has been there for about 2 weeks. That's a pretty good start. And that's what has the Democrats terrified. The agencies that saw the greatest savings from some of the cuts are the Office of Personnel Management at nearly $500 million. Of course, the $228 million at USAID. The Department of Agriculture saw $110 million in cuts on this list, and climbing. President Trump has ordered the Office of Management and Budget to coordinate with the termination of all discriminatory programs, including illegal DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility mandates, policies, programs, preferences, and activities in the federal government under whatever name they may appear. Because they're getting pretty creative. They're starting to change the names of some of these agencies. They're starting to, even some of the leaders are changing their titles so that they don't appear to be a DEI hire. I don't think it's going to work. I think Elon Musk is going to sniff that one out real quick. President Donald Trump, during a press conference yesterday evening after meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said that the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, level it, and rebuild the area.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is the first world leader to actually meet with Trump at the White House during his second administration. When asked about taking over the Gaza Strip, Trump said he could see the U.S. in a, quote, long-term ownership position of the piece of land, which would likely bring stability to the Middle East. He said, I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly, he said. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the U.S. owning that piece of land. What do you think? Is this the right move for the U.S. to take over that controversial strip of property that has caused so much anguish, so much fighting over these years? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. The two world leaders discussed the current ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas and its future. They talked about Iran's grip on the Middle East and resettling Gaza residents in other nations. Trump said that the Gaza Strip has become a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, which takes me back to my question a minute ago. Can we do it? Or are we getting into something that's going to be a lot tougher than we think? Trump said it should not go through a process of rebuilding the occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there, he said. Prime Minister Netanyahu praised President Trump's tenacity and his ability to, quote, think outside of the box during his comments to the press. The Israeli leader continued that his nation's victory will also be a win for America, saying Israel's victory will be America's victory. So we'll see. That's quite the announcement for sure, that the U.S. is going to take over that strip of land that has seen so much death, so much destruction. And it's going to be an expensive proposition. It's going to cost a lot of money. I'm sure Donald Trump has a plan. If there's anything he knows about, it's redeveloping, rebuilding an area. So we'll see. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt got some attention this week during one of her news conferences when she said that the mainstream media is struggling to keep up with all the good news. With all the good news coming from the Trump administration. She was on with Sean Hannity, and Ms. Leavitt praised Trump's rapid action in signing executive orders, fulfilling campaign promises while frustrating the political left at the same time. Ms. Leavitt emphasized that President Trump's ability to deliver on promises and to speak the truth makes her job easy as press secretary. She pointed to several international victories, including recent policy concessions from Canada, from Mexico, Panama, Denmark, Colombia, Venezuela, as well as the administration's successful military action against ISIS terrorists, achievements she claimed were underreported by the mainstream media. Here's Ms. Leavitt with Sean Hannity.
That's right. There is so much good news, so much winning out of the Trump White House right now that the mainstream legacy media can't keep up with it, because President Trump is signing executive order after executive order, delivering on promise after promise, and implementing fundamental change of our bloated bureaucracy and our corrupt government here in Washington, D.C. He was given a once-in-a-generation mandate by the American people to govern and to fundamentally transform Washington, and that's exactly what he is doing. And we finally, after 4 years of chaos and mayhem and apologizing for America, have a president again in the Oval Office who is standing up for America. And this is what it looks like when you have a leader of our great nation who uses the leverage of the United States, who understands that since our nation's founding, we have been viewed as that shining light on the hill. We have been viewed, rightfully so, as the best, proudest country in the world. And President Trump is not afraid to say that or to use that for the American people's benefit. And that's why you have seen so many countries around the world in just the matter of 2 weeks cave to President Trump's demands. In the past 24 hours, you have Canada and Mexico agreeing to help secure our southern and northern borders. And these tariffs that President Trump threatened to impose on both Canada and Mexico, and they were sign, seal, deliver, I may add, those were retaliatory tariffs for the last 4 years of treatment by Canada and Mexico of our nation. They have allowed an unprecedented wave of illegal deadly drugs and illegal criminals on our territorial borders. And President Trump said enough is enough. He is standing up for the American people. Too many lives have been lost at the hands of illegal migrants and Chinese fentanyl flowing through our nation's borders. And he got Canada and Mexico to step up to the plate to surge resources and personnel to our territorial borders. And America and the American people will be safer because of it.
According to Ms. Leavitt, Trump's approach is drastically different from what she described as the chaos and mayhem of the Biden administration. She argued that President Trump is implementing fundamental change by reducing government bureaucracy and restoring strong leadership in Washington and just being decisive, making decisions. She also highlighted Trump's use of U.S. leverage to benefit Americans, calling him a leader who understands the country's historic role as a global force for good. As President Trump continues to sign executive orders and enact reforms, Ms. Leavitt predicted more policy victories, adding that the media's inability to cover all of them reflects the administration's success in delivering rapid and meaningful change. And she is right on that for sure. Comedian Jon Stewart, he comes up with some good ones. I mean, that's why he's paid millions of dollars to tell jokes. He's been critical of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. And this week he said that Schumer, in responding to President Trump's proposed tariffs, he ridiculed Schumer for explaining the impact by holding up a can of Corona beer and an avocado. I don't know if you happen to see Schumer doing that, but Stewart called Schumer's reaction ineffective, mocking his delivery and lack of media savvy, then when responding to one of the most, what he called, savvy presidential media manipulators in history. Here's Jon Stewart.
It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados.
Your response to the trade war is to tell us guacamole is made of avocados? Democrats, can you please stop trotting Schumer out there every time Trump traverses into the unreal? He's not good at this. What is the decision-making process here? Hey, who should we get out there to effectively battle one of the most savvy presidential media manipulators in history? Oh, I don't know. How about Schumer? He's uninteresting, but at least he's monotone.
Only Jon Stewart can come up with that. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.